I make it a rule never to take a woman unless she can beat me in a fair fight.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Why not?
Brigitte Nielsen. A magnificent new legend.
Welcome to That's Canon. It's a podcast talking about the Canon film series and other similar movies. We're on episode 23, and I'm your host, Phil.
And I'm Greg.
Greg, we watched Red Sonja, the 1985 Dutch-American epic sword and sorcery film.
You know, there was a long time there when I thought that the only Dutch-American films that I would ever see are Paul Verhoeven movies. And I think this is the good reason why, because it was, I don't know. I'm sure you and I have probably differing opinions on this, but
from just what I'm hearing right now, we definitely do. I'm assuming it's Dutch American because of Brigitte Nielsen. She's the star. She's Red Sonja.
Yeah. Is she Dutch or is she Danish?
She's from Denmark.
Okay.
And I guess that's Danish. What's the difference between Dutch and Danish?
Well, Dutch, that's like the Netherlands. That's two different countries.
Oh, okay.
But they start with D. So there's that.
Yeah. I always just assume, like, you know, if you're from that area.
Northern Europe.
Yeah, like you're Dutch or something. And then, like, when you get fine grain, you get your, your other, like, oh, he's from England. Oh, he's Welsh, right? Like you're from England, but you're,
the UK versus Welsh Dutch.
I'm American. Oh, well, he's from Alabama, though. He's Alabamian.
Well, everyone, I hope you're enjoying what you're hearing. A couple of schlubs not knowing jack shit about European geography.
That's for sure. I know England, Spain, Germany. So I guess it is really interesting that they considered a Dutch American film because the director is Richard Fleischer, who is not Dutch.
Yeah, that's what I assumed is like, was there any kind of, did they shoot it in that country in the Netherlands? I didn't think so. I mean, based on the geography, I don't think so. It's awfully mountainous. There must have been someone in the production who was Dutch.
Maybe it just makes it sound cooler, right? Like, oh, it's Dutch American.
It's Dutch American. Yes, it's an international picture.
So, as I just said, Richard Fleischer is the director. Now, he's done quite a few notable movies. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea from 1954, starring Kirk Douglas. He's done The Fantastic Voyage in 1966. He did Soylent Green in 1973.
Really? So this came out. This is pretty late in his career then, in the 80s. Okay.
Yep. So this one was the second to last movie that he ever did. The last movie being The $1 Million Mystery, released in 1987. This was definitely on the downslope of his career.
Yeah.
He did The Jazz Singer, which was from 1980, not the classic movie that everyone's probably thinking of when they hear The Jazz Singer. He was actually nominated for a Golden Raspberry for Worst Director for that movie.
Razzies.
Exactly. He did a sports boxing drama called Tough Enough, starring Dennis Quaid, Amityville 3D, and Conan the Destroyer, which is the sequel to Conan the Barbarian, and then Red Sonja.
That is... Okay, that's interesting. So, I mean, does that explain how they got Arnold Schwarzenegger for this one?
It explains a couple things, actually, why Arnold Schwarzenegger's in this, and also the villain in the movie. She is from Conan, the first one, Conan the Barbarian.
Oh,
she was actually one of the main characters in that film, which is pretty interesting. Her name is Sandal Bergman.
Sandal Bergman. Okay, yeah. I mean, we'll get into the performances, but I'm surprised that I assume it's because she's just kind of like a large statured woman that she was probably in that, because she cannot act.
Oh, really? I thought she was,
at least not in this. I mean, maybe she was better in Conan. We established last time that I'm Shamefully, have not seen it, but
It's I will say I think some of the performances, I won't say any of the performances in the movie are amazing by any means,
no.
but I don't think any one person did anything horrible. But let's go ahead.
Yeah,
Let's get
let's
in
get
this.
into
And
it.
let me just preface. I watched this movie with my entire family last night. Uh so the movie starts with as all epic movies should, with a scroll. Her name was Red Sonja. She lived in a savage
Yes.
world in the age of violence. A fierce warrior with flaming red hair, which Bridget Nielsen does not have in this movie. Uh,
No, it's charitably a reddish brown, but
yeah,
no, it's not red hair.
in the Hyborian Kingdom, which again is the connection to Conan.
Hmm.
Her quest for justice and vengeance became a legend. So let's just take that for a moment. From what I've read about Red Sonja, the production of it, Arnold was supposed to be Conan in this movie, but there was like a rights issue, and that's why Arnold is a totally different character in this.
Interesting. I was actually going to ask you about more about the ties between this and Conan, but like just the photos that I've seen from the other Conan movies, having not seen them again, he looks like he could be the same character. He's got
Yeah,
the same haircut as I think, right? As I
yeah,
recall, or is it? So I was actually wondering if that was potentially the case, where it was sort of like maybe a later in life Conan after he'd settled down to be like a king or something, or but
yeah.
okay, yeah. So it sounds like it was just they did intend it for it to be the same character. They just couldn't get the rights to it, so they just name swapped him.
They did. And Red Sonja, the character, was actually created in 1973 by Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor Smith for Marvel Comics. She debuted in Conan the Barbarian number 23, released in 1973.
Whoa,
So,
whoa, whoa! So she's actually this is actually like a comic book character
yeah,
from the Conan comic books, but it wasn't. That's so weird that it's
isn't that?
not actually a real Conan movie then.
Yeah. It's probably because Conan the Barbarian is owned by one movie studio. Red Sonja has now been purchased by this movie studio. And we're not at that point in life where studios will play nice with each other.
Yeah, they're still jealously guarding their IP.
Exactly. Uh, so the movie opens up. It's very awkward. I actually found it starts with like a
Yeah,
flashback. We see Red Sonja's hut. It's being burned down, and when she wakes up, there's like a ghost in the woods that she talks to. It's never really explained what this ghost is.
you know what I thought that it looked like or slash reminded me of the library ghost from Ghostbusters.
I could see that.
I don't know why. I think it was just like the blue. It was kind of glowing blue and floating there, and it kind of had like a white dress on, and it looked like that library ghost from Ghostbusters before it got all spooky and scary at the
Yeah.
end there.
It's like, shh, I'm telling you, Red Sonja, about the stuff that just happened to you. Uh,
It also kind of like so that you mentioned it started with a flashback. It kind of reminded me of Hercules a little bit in that regard. Like I actually, if I didn't know better, you could have convinced me that this was a sequel to a different movie. Or
Interesting.
Red's like because the shots that we get of like the flashbacks, it looked like it was a different movie.
It looks like it's the Red Sonja Begins, right?
Yeah,
Like there's Red Sonja Begins, Red Sonja.
yeah, exactly. Like I would have thought that you like it could have been that where you see or you get instead of having it be a flashback, you actually get those scenes for real, which would have been nice here. But
And I think there's a couple moments in this movie where I think the movie would have been better if it was longer. And this is the first case of it.
mhm,
Is the movie opens up and it's a ghost explaining to Red Sonja about how her family was murdered by the
mhm,
villain in the movie.
right, the
And
evil queen.
you're kind of sitting there wondering, why are we not experiencing this?
Yeah, why didn't we just see those scenes instead of having it be a flashback?
Exactly. The
Budget, I guess.
but they filmed it. That's the thing. Like they
That's true.
filmed
Yeah, they
it.
had the footage. Why did they? I
So
don't know.
it makes even less sense. The ghost then like touches Red Sonja with a sword and says,
Right.
I will
Ignites
make you
her.
strong and I'll give you the sword arm that you need in order to destroy your enemies. Now,
Right.
Red Sonja, as we said, is Bridget Nielsen. Bridget Nielsen had 3 years of being a popular actress before we just discarded her into obscurity. Red Sonja is her first film. She
Mhm.
went on to do Rocky 4, Cobra, Beverly Hills Cops 2, and that's when we threw her in the trash. We all decided she's not worth it. And I don't think we really lose anything. So, if you've never seen Bridget Nielsen, she's very tall. She's pretty. She has that, a very specific supermodel look to her.
Yeah.
The issue that I have with her Red Sonja, though, is back in the 80s, women had like the high and tight or the flat top kind of hairdo. Think of it like Gozer the Gozerian from Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah. That's a great description.
So her character, Red Sonja, has very long hair. So she has extensions attached to her mullet head.
Mullet is also a great way to describe it. It
And
looks like, yeah, mullet.
it looks bad. It looks really bad in this film. Um,
Yeah, I don't know what the hairdresser thought that why I thought that was a good idea.
because
It's like
there's
always getting in her face too.
exactly. And there's so many good for me personally, there's so many good things in this film to mess up on something like the hair, put her in an entire wig or do something because this extensions it doesn't work.
No, it is. It's definitely a little distracting for sure.
So as we get introduced to Red Sonja, Arnold Schwarzenegger's name gets splashed across the screen and we see him riding horseback. Arnold Schwarzenegger gets top billing in this movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger then introducing Bridget Nielsen. We get a sweeping shots of him going through the countryside.
The scenery is great, isn't it?
Yes, it looks
Like that was the first big wow moment for me in this, and for a couple wow moments about the scenery in general. But that's what I wanted to ask. Like, do you know where this was shot?
I
Because
think it was
it's very Lord of
Spain.
the Rings looking. Oh, Spain.
I think
Okay.
parts of it were filmed in Spain. And as I think what makes or complements the scene so well is that Ennio Morricone
Yes,
soundtrack that goes over it.
that was a surprise to me. I was not expecting an Ennio Morricone soundtrack on this. I'll get more into why that's a disappointment later, but like that was a pleasant surprise in the credits for sure, because like in the opening credits you get this really great kind of orchestral epic sound, and then you get that almost trademark like backing vocals like the
Yep.
it sounded very like spaghetti western to me, and then his name flashed on the screen. It's like okay,
There
that
it is.
explains
That's
it.
the reason why.
It's great. It's great music.
Let's see here. Several scenes were shot in Italy around the Gran Sasso Massif and in studios in Rome. So Italy.
Okay, I did not know that there were places in Italy that looked like that.
Yeah. That
Very scenic mountain, like kind of like rolling hills and mountains in the background, and must be like northern Italy, I guess, by the Alps.
maybe. I don't know. As we have just said, I am not a geography guy.
We ain't no geography experts.
I know it sounds horrible, but man, I am not a geography person.
The pretty hills could be anywhere.
Exactly, pretty much. Schwarzenegger, he finds a bridge and it's destroyed, and then we cut to this temple area, and it's all women, and they're surrounding this green flashing orb talisman that I guess has the power to destroy the earth if it gets too powerful. It's powered by light. So
Superman stone.
exactly, it's like kryptonite. These women are going to enclose this stone in internal darkness to essentially just negate its power, right?
Right.
Pretty smart.
Yeah. This whole
As
set looks great too.
it
Again, kind
does.
of like going from the nice scenery to like a really nice temple set. Almost it looks like like an upside down funnel
Yeah.
where there's and they kind of like walk in the side. There's some like nice spiral stairs up the side, and the inside of it looks really well. Like in a lot of these kind of movies, the fake stonework always looks really well fake. It looks really good here. It looks like stone. It looks like granite, and just Really great set.
And the costumes look great too. They're all in
Mhm.
like white and gold.
Yeah, like the gold, like little armor pieces that are kind
Yeah.
of on the outside of the robes.
I think the entire set, the costumes, all of it looked great.
Yeah.
And then we get Ronald Lacey, the Nazi from the Indiana Jones films.
Is that him?
It is.
Oh my gosh. I'm normally good at spotting the character actors like that, but I was so hung up on is he or isn't he? But his
Yeah.
every time he talked, I kept hearing it. It's like that's the guy who burns his hand on the staff head in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then his head explodes at the end, or his face melts.
Yeah. Are you
That's
ready for
him.
this? He was
Oh boy.
also in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as Heinrich
What?
Himmler. He goes uncredited, but he plays another Nazi. This dude
Way to go, dude.
is known for his Nazi
I guess
roles.
so, yeah. He's
Uh,
just got that kind of like squirrely look to him.
Yeah,
He looks like an evil henchman bad guy.
he does. He has a great villain face.
Really does.
He produces a ninja star and he chucks it at the high priestess that's leading the entire event.
Hmm.
I thought this was probably the worst, maybe the cheesiest part. He hits her
Yeah.
in the chest armor piece and kills her. There's like blood. Blah.
Yeah, and you can see the string too. They do that typical gag where they attach it to a string and put it in her chest piece and then like rip it out and then play it in reverse so it looks
Yeah,
like it's hitting her from off screen. But this maybe it's just because it's an HD transfer and that wasn't visible
I
in the
think
theaters back in the day.
yes. I think that's part of the. I think a lot of the issues that we see from 80s movies is they filmed it going, they're not going to see this.
No one's gonna see that. It's gonna be blurry on a projector.
Exactly.
Meh.
So the high priestess dies, and all the warriors they start coming into the temple. They have an awesome fog machine going. You get
Yeah.
like a lot of atmosphere, and I think the fight is pretty decent, right? You have all the women fighting all the other barbarians and warriors. It looks
Yeah.
pretty good.
There's
Uh,
a lot of what I noticed in this scene, and they do it throughout the rest of the movie too, is there's a lot of really great like squib fires that
yes,
happen when people get slashed with swords like in the gut or on the shoulder, like really good little like pop of blood that kind of like, pops out from the underneath the clothes of the costumes. It's I don't know if I've seen that a whole lot. Where like you normally you get that with a gunshot, right? I'm not sure
yeah.
I've seen a lot of that effect from like a sword slash. It was kind of effective. I liked it.
It's either you get nothing or it's overdone, like Tarantino, right?
Yeah, where it's just like like it's not like you either get, yeah, like you said, nothing, or you get like a fire hose spray of blood, and you don't get just like little pop.
Yeah,
Very effective.
it looked good. And as all the priestess are getting killed, Queen Gedrin enters and she's like, "Yes, we found, the green orb thingy."
The green MacGuffin.
And she immediately looks at some just random henchman dude and she's like, "Touch it."
And this guy, like we ain't seen his face before. He's a red shirt.
Yeah.
You know this guy's a goner.
He
And he
touches
knows it too.
he touches it and you hear like a bzap and he disappears. My wife audibly laughed at this point.
Yeah, so did I. It was up until now, like we've seen really great like costumes and scenery and set pieces and matte paintings. I was expecting more from this ultra powerful artifact killing someone touching it. I was expecting like a cool particle effect or like a disintegration. They literally just like boop, and he's just gone. He
Yeah,
just cut the film.
it was
It was so
awesome.
lazy.
Uh, and then Queen Gedrin has this like sidekick girl who I don't think really gets a name throughout the entire film. And then she's told to touch the green orb and she doesn't die. And then Queen Gedrin's like, so it's true. Only women can touch this, which makes sense is why only women were in the temple to destroy this thing.
Right. They're like the only ones who can kind of watch over it without like inadvertently killing themselves.
Yes. Unbeknownst to everyone else in the room, Varna, who is Red Sonja's sister, is still alive. And she's kind of like snooping in on what's going on.
Right.
So I thought this part was pretty good. There's a couple, POWs essentially that they have, some more women, and Queen Gedron's like, throw them in the hole and then we'll seal it up and they'll die. I thought that was pretty metal.
That was like, what a horrible way to die. Well, so at first I thought it was supposed to be some kind of like bottomless pit, but then I realized later, like, oh, the artifact was light, got its power from light, so it must have just been like a dark cave with and there was like a lid on top that they were going to close over it, like you said earlier. But like, what a horrible way to die, to just like be closed into a dark cave until you starve to death.
And as the seal on top of the hole is closing up, and you can hear the women that get thrown in there screaming and screaming until it seals. I thought that part was so good.
Effective, yeah, for sure.
And then we cut back to Arnold on horseback, and he sees Red Sonja's sister running from some henchmen, and she goes on a zip line across this giant chasm.
The zip line. Come on, movie. Really?
They have to get away. They have to have an escape plan for situations just like this.
Yeah, I guess so. It just seems awfully convenient.
Oh yeah. For sure. There's a lot of convenience in this movie. And as she's ziplining, she gets struck by an arrow, and then we get our first Arnold fight as some other henchmen appear from nowhere. Arnold slices one of their heads off, and you actually see the head fly into the air. That was
great.
This won't be the last time we see this either. The movie's PG-13.
No.
Yes.
Are you serious? There's
serious.
No way.
Yeah.
It not only is it way too violent to be a PG-13, there are boobs later.
Yes, there are. How insane is that
What?
This was PG-13?
Wow, that's shocking.
Yeah.
The MPAA was just like asleep when they rated this, I guess.
I know. I'm gonna chalk up the boobs thing to you wouldn't be able to see it before HD.
It's true. It was small enough on the screen. Well, we'll get to that point, but that's very surprising. I would have thought, I mean, good for the rating system to not be quite so prudish as we expected them to be, but at this point in history, I'm very shocked that this got PG-13.
So Varna, Red Sonja's sister's like, hey, we need to find Red Sonja. Arnold just kind of looks at her very intensely and just, nods his head yes.
Without saying anything.
We cut to Red Sonja fighting some like Japanese warrior type people.
Yeah, I guess I got the very distinct impression that they wanted to put like ninjas in this movie, but they realized the setting doesn't quite fit with like a feudal Japan, like a ninja, and they just gave them different costumes.
Yeah.
But they the moves are very similar, very like martial arts focused.
Even this set looks really good. They're in like a pit area sparring, and there's like a giant statue. It looks very seamless.
It's like if you can imagine like a stone, like an ancient Greek amphitheater, like it's kind of like set into the ground, like you said. But yeah, I was going to ask you, I could not tell if that big statue was a matte painting or if they actually built that thing, because it looks seamless.
I would almost have to say, since there is a matte painting later on, that is a real facade of some kind.
That's very impressive.
Red Sonja is talking to her master,
I guess,
and the master's like,
this whole thing.
Yeah, there's no real like connective glue here.
No, she's just here.
Yeah. Her master's like, oh, you're finally at the level to where you can be considered a master. Let's go into my hut of swords, and you can choose the one that calls to you.
The ancient hut of swords.
Yeah. As Red Sonja goes in, she hears the faint call of the ghost that she spoke to in the woods.
Okay. I was going to ask if it was the same ghost. It sounded like the same voice.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it's the same one. But again, the unnamed ghost who, for some reason, is watching after Red Sonja.
Yeah. Gotta watch after her.
Hero's got a hero.
It calls to a specific sword, and as she picks it up, a key light is exposed. And Bridget Nielsen's face lights up as she holds the sword up to the sky. Meanwhile, Arnold Schwarzenegger enters the pit.
And meanwhile, in a different movie,
he's like, "Where is Red Sonja?
Where is she?"
And Red Sonja comes up and he's like, "Your sister is dying. Let's go."
Oh, he was okay. This is the second laugh out loud moment for me. He's just so abrupt. He's like, "I'm looking for Red Sonja," and she walks out like, "Your sister, she's dying." Like
It's
no preamble, no explanation of what's happened. Like he's just so blunt about it.
yeah, which is insane. I was thinking like his acting is kind of wooded and stiff in this.
It's
At,
very wooded.
at
It really is.
what point in his career are we at? So he did Conan the Barbarian, The Destroyer, Terminator. This is the next one, Red Sonja. He did
Yeah,
Red
like
Sonja and Commando at this in the same year. And Commando, he has so much charisma in that movie.
yeah, he emotes. He's just very charismatic.
Yeah.
He just does not give a shit in this movie whatsoever.
It's insane. I don't know what his I don't know, maybe he didn't like it, but he was not there's parts where you can tell like he's doing it, and then a lot of it he's just I'm
Phoning it in.
yeah. As Red Sonja and Arnold Schwarzenegger go across the countryside, they find a giant ox statue in the field, and Varna, Red Sonja's sister, is laying underneath there, and she's dying. She is
Yes.
telling Red Sonja that they murdered all the priests, and they're the MacGuffin, the kryptonite MacGuffin, the talisman that can
I don't even remember the name of it.
yeah, neither can I. That will destroy the world. Is has been taken, and as Varna's like dying, she's like, Red Sonja's like, where is it? North, south, east, west? Who took it? And Varna's like, it's a woman in a gold mask with soldiers, and then she just dies. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger goes, your sister's dead.
Oh, he does. Oh my god! Like twice in a row now, he's like, "Your sister's dying." Oh, now she's dead.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
I have to say, this is my love for the movie. Definitely, probably comes from the fact that I saw this when I was really little.
Yeah.
But Red Sonja and Conan. Oh my God, Red Sonja.
You may as well just call him Conan, like lame bored Conan.
Bored Conan.
Conan.
Red Sonja and Bored Conan kind of, talk for a couple sentences because Bridget Nielsen doesn't have that much dialogue either. And
No.
I'm gonna assume it's because she's, foreign and English probably isn't her first language.
Yeah, she definitely has. You can tell for the first time in this scene, really, that she's got a really thick accent.
Yeah.
And I actually thought that, based on like the kind of terrible lip sync on this edit, like she looks dubbed almost.
Oh yeah.
But then you hear the accents, like, okay, why would they dub her with someone also with a bad accent? So
Maybe they dubbed her with herself and
it's just
like
bad ADR, I guess.
they like gave her time to like work the words to make
Oh,
it sound
like
better.
they didn't have time to give her like voice coaching before the production started.
Yeah.
So they did it after. That wouldn't surprise me, knowing this, from what we've seen in the movie, it wouldn't surprise me.
Red Sonja gives Vanya her Viking funeral by setting her on fire. And as they
Fire scene, woo.
yeah, as bored Conan and Red Sonja look out to the horizon, they see a lightning storm off in the distance. And they're like,
Yes.
"Oh, there's a city over there that's under attack." And Red Sonja's like, "I have to go find the kryptonite orb, and I don't need a man's help." And
I don't need no man.
Conan's like, "I think you do need help, though. It doesn't matter that I'm a man, but I think you need help." And she's like, "No." And then she just
Bye.
she rides away off into the distance. And then we see Ernie Reyes Jr. on a giant stone hand.
Yes.
And on the other end is his manservant, right? I guess he's a manservant, right?
He's like a caretaker or something.
Yeah,
Something like that. Like a half butler, half bodyguard.
his name is Falcorn. So Falcorn is played by Paul Lawrence Smith, who, as we all know, was Bluto in the Robert Altman Popeye movie with, I can't believe I can't think of his name right now.
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams.
There you go.
Ernie Reyes Jr. plays Donatello in the Ninja Turtles movies, and Kino in Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze.
Woo.
I honestly kind of liked Ernie Reyes Jr. in it. He was able to show off some of his martial arts, and it was very
this
impressive.
kid is extremely talented.
Yeah. He's probably like, what do you think, 12, 13 in this movie?
If that, I would have pegged him for just kind of like on like a teenager kind of like 11, 12. Yeah, right in that area. But he's definitely, I would argue, probably the best trained of any of the main actors of this.
100%. He is the best person for the choreography that they give him, right?
Yeah, whipping that sword around and some like really great spin kicks and stuff that he does later.
So Red Sonja, they meet Ernie Reyes Jr., who plays Prince Tarn. He's a spoiled boy, but he is also the Prince of Hablok, a destroyed town that Queen Gedrin, raised essentially. She stole the army of Hablok. And
Hablok.
It sounds like you're getting ready to spit.
It sounds like Klingon.
It kind of does. Hablok.
Hey, we worked in Star Trek.
There we go. I looked for Star Trek people, but I didn't see anyone in here.
No, me neither.
So Red Sonja is kind of like, okay, Queen Gedrin, she came through, destroyed the place. You're a spoiled brat. The scene does go on for a little bit longer than it needs to be because it's really pinning down that Prince Tarn is a brat.
Yeah, that's really all they needed to get across here. Because he's like, when she meets these two, the manservant and him, they're like, he's like stuck on this like piece of a statue that's hanging over the edge of a cliff, and she helps him get off. But he's like shouting orders to the manservant, just like being really, like he's just like a little shit, basically.
Yeah.
And then, you get to the point where like they're just like bantering back and forth. And then she says, "You need to put this kid over your knee and beat some manners into him."
Exactly. I love that.
Yay, corporal punishment.
It's great. Red Sonja goes off and she's going to go through a toll road, Brytag's toll road, which is Brytag's a person, Lord Brytag, played by Pat Roach.
This guy sounded familiar to me. He didn't look familiar, but his voice sounded very familiar.
He should
I'm assuming not, but
look familiar because he's from Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's the guy who gets chopped to death by the plane.
Oh, he's like the German strongman guy.
Yep. He's the guy who explodes. He's also in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom as Chief Guard. He's also Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as Gestapo. He's just
Gestapo number one.
All of the Gestapo. He's also from Willow. He's General Kale in Willow. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, we actually rewatched Willow not that long ago. Maybe that's why he sounded familiar, because I think he probably spoke more in that. Okay.
So as Red Sonja gets to the toll and it's being guarded by Brytag, essentially he's like, if you let me have sex with you, I'll let you through. And she's like, no, I'll kill you to get through your toll road. And she's like, if I kill you, your guards must stand down. Now the guards, I think, look really cool. They kind of have like a Marlin armor.
It's like very. It also reminded me of like the orcish armor in Lord of the Rings, where it's kind of like sharp and pointy and organic looking. Again, like the costumes in this are just on point, and it feels almost wasted on these like background characters who we see for basically just this scene.
Yeah.
But they're all decked out in this really like ornate kind of that kind of pointy, sharp armor. It looks really cool.
It is very awesome. Even Brytag looks really cool. He has just a very elaborate gold armor set.
Yeah,
that's going on.
Like a fur like a fur coat or cape or something.
Yeah,
very very ornate.
So Brytag and Red Sonja, they're fighting. Again, I think it's a really good fight, right? Like there's slashes and gashes and there's blood, but not, cartoonishly amounts. Because
we definitely, I think we get another like a good like squib when she slashes at him, right?
Yeah, across the arm, and he's kind of
across the arm,
the blood, comes out, and then at one point, Red Sonja does like a double flip over Lord Brightag, and she stabs him in the chest. And again, like blood, but a decent
Not,
amount, not a cartoonish amount. And
yeah,
it looked really, I don't know. The story doesn't complement the visuals or the effort into everything else. I will give you that.
yeah. I
Um,
honestly like. I think, and this is a good part to bring that up too, because I think for me, this was the scene that sort of cemented that exact opinion. Is that like there's like so many great visuals, but and really the fight scenes aren't that bad either. They're seem well choreographed, and there's really like some attention and thought paid to like the slashes and the like little bit of violence that we see, but it's just, yeah, like you said, not served well at all by the story, because at this point, like, I was genuinely getting bored.
oh man, I was getting
Like,
excited. Uh,
yeah, that's, yeah,
as Red Sonja kills Lord Brightag, the guards start closing in on her, and then out jumps Arnold Schwarzenegger, Conan. Except this time he's not that bored. They're fighting and stuff like that, and then they get to the toll door, and Red Sonja is about to leave, and she's like, "Come with me," and he's like, "No, I'll hold them back." And he has that charm, he has that smile going on,
yeah,
and
that action hero kind of vibe going on.
yeah, and then he goes in, he starts fighting the nameless henchman. You don't really get to see the fight happen. You just hear the
No,
screams of Arnold Schwarzenegger and the
cling, cling,
battle that
cling.
ensues as Red Sonja goes into the woods. She hears the cries of Ernie Reyes Jr. Now, again, I don't expect much from movies sometimes, especially movies like this. How the
Yeah.
hell did Ernie Reyes Jr.
How the hell
get in
did
front
he?
of Red Sonja?
I I don't know. That's why I'm laughing. Like, I wrote that in all caps in my notes here. It's like, how the hell did this little king get ahead of her?
Yeah,
I-
I don't get it. Um, but it's an awesome part. They have Ernie Reyes Jr. He's tied to a tree by the legs, and then his arms are tied to horses.
yeah, like they're seriously like these ruffians have kidnapped him and are like extorting him for whatever gold they think he's got stashed somewhere.
Yeah,
And they're seriously like ready to draw and quarter this kid.
exactly.
It's like, whoa, oh my God, that's like intense.
It's awesome.
It's awesome too, yeah, for
It's
sure.
so good. And the entire time I was watching, I was like, where is his manservant? But Red Sonja comes in for the assist, cuts the ropes off of Ernie Reyes Jr. She starts killing everyone around
Yeah,
him. During the fight, the manservant comes up and he has like daggers. That's like his thing. And
yeah,
he,
kind of on his chest there.
throws the daggers and kills people. He also has this really awesome bone club.
Yeah, it looks like a big like a horse femur. It's just this
Yeah.
huge club, big bone. It's pretty cool. He starts bashing dudes with it.
Ernie Reyes Jr. gets to demonstrate some of his martial arts abilities here, kicking and punching and stuff, and he looks fantastic.
So polished.
He is outclassing all the adults around him.
That's like, it's just so, I was so frustrating because he's clearly, like we said before, the most like skilled martial artist in the entire cast, and yet they constantly, like, except for this one scene, he's constantly portrayed as being just like helplessly weak.
Yeah,
I mean, I can see he's a little kid, so it's not unreasonable, but like that, trying to portray him as like a weak kid who can't really fight the adults, but then contrasting that with his clearly like superior actual real skill, it just doesn't mesh together. You know what I mean?
no, I get exactly what you mean. He is so much better than everyone else, and yet he just doesn't get the credit that he deserves in the movie.
Yeah. Like like I said before, like this is really the only scene where we see him. There's like one of the ruffians. He kind of does a couple cool spin kicks into him and knocks him out. But like that's really the only cool fight scene that we get. I guess we get a little bit later on at the end, but we don't really get like one of those great scenes that I feel like we needed with him like saving the day and like legitimately like kicking the shit out of these bad guys.
Exactly. Nope, I agree with you there. He doesn't get his hero's arc in the
No.
film. Uh Meanwhile, Queen Gedrin is she's entering like her giant palace, right? And they're bringing the green kryptonite MacGuffin into a room filled with candles. Which I think this was
Wow.
my wife's favorite part because the Nazi from Indiana Jones goes, "This is kind of dangerous." My
Do
wife
we?
just assumed it was because it's a bunch of open flames and that things would
Yeah,
catch on fire.
me too.
But it's because the MacGuffin is powered by light. So the more
Yeah,
light that it gets, the more powerful it is. And Queen Gedron wants to make sure that it has the most power because
maximum power.
for some reason she is one of those villains that just wants to destroy the world. She doesn't want to control the world. She doesn't want to rule the world. She wants to destroy it. Which I
Just wants to,
I
yeah.
never get that. I never get that from a villain. Why destroy the world? That means you
Yeah,
don't
we
live
we
either.
we talked about, yeah, we talked about this in the Hercules episode. Like, there's like, to what end are you trying to, like, we haven't established this lady, this queen has haven't been slighted or is in the kind of like mental state where she just wants to be dead and everyone to die with her.
Yeah.
Like, she seems like the type who, no, she wants to rule, she wants power. Why would you risk destroying the earth if there's going to be, yeah, you're going to die along with it and there's going to be no one for you to rule over? Like,
Yeah.
what's the end game? What's your end game here?
I never understand that motivation by villains.
Yeah.
Unless it's a villain that has like a terminal case of something, right? Like
Yeah,
there's
like
like
there's a,
Bond villains that have like terminal illnesses or something wrong with them. They have an expiration date.
and they want to take people with them.
Exactly.
They're angry at the world for something that the universe did to them.
Yep.
And they want to get back at everyone. Like, they don't establish this queen as having any of that motivation whatsoever.
Exactly. It'd be like if I turned into a supervillain and I was like, all men will have testicular cancer because I had it too. Right?
Even the women.
Even the women. Like that the motivation is sound because I got slighted. Why not you as well with it, right?
Exactly. You're angry at the universe for making you unlucky in that regard.
You took lefty. I'll take your
lefty.
righty.
Take the world's lefties.
Yes. Go ahead.
No, before we move on, I just want to like underscore how cool this room with the candles looks.
Oh yes.
It is. If you imagine imagine a room, it's sort of like an upside down triangle. There's like kind of like there's a stepped up walls on all sides, and at every step along the walls there's candles. I mean, this room is just filled wall to wall with lit candles. And it's so funny that you mentioned Jackie being like worried about the fire hazard, because these are not like painted in special effects candles. And if this were done today, these would all be CG. But like, this is legitimately a room that they lit like hundreds and hundreds of candles on the walls, and it just looks so cool. And because it's all real.
Yeah.
And I had that same fear too. It's like, wow, like this looks great, but like, holy fire hazard, Batman.
Yeah, that Nazi's gonna catch on fire.
That Nazi, yeah, like they're gonna catch on fire. Like the scene that like the walls are probably made out of foam or like some kind of like flammable paint like material.
Asbestos.
It's the 80s, asbestos probably, but I guess that would have helped. But still, like, this room just looks so cool. And again, it just underscores how awesome all of the sets are in this. It feels wasted. Like, I wish they'd spent more time in this room, honestly.
It's they come back to the room a little bit later. I totally agree with you. I think every set piece in Queen Gedron's castle looks awesome, because when you go to the throne room again,
right
it's
after this,
very immaculate. Like, there's a lot of tiny details throughout the entire thing. And the one thing that really upset me, and little Phil just, again, they set something up and they didn't do it. They had Chekhov's gun, but they never shot it. Queen Gedron comes into her throne room, and next to her throne is her pet spider.
Yes, the adorable like little like Yorkshire Terrier sized spider. It's great.
That they never do anything with.
Yeah, no, you never see that again. You just see her pet this adorable pet spider, and that's it.
Would have bet money that Ernie Reyes Jr. was going to fight that thing.
Oh my God. I did not think of that, but that is the most badass thing that I can ever imagine.
Yeah. I
A,
don't
a
know.
little kid fighting a little kid fighting a giant spider.
It's
Oh man, that would have been an awesome fight.
the way it looked too good to not be used, but
Yeah, it was fully articulated. It was moving around, and I mean, like this really great looking little puppet.
yep. Queen Gedrin, she sits at her throne with her little henchman girlfriend buddy. And then we get like
Yeah.
this wizard who has everyone is generally dressed in black, but you have this wizard who has like the Technicolor dream coat on. Um, and he has like spells and he's doing stuff. And they bring in like a TV of sorts, like a Viewmaster. What I assumed is that this wizard was watching porn.
Yes,
Uh,
that's exactly what I thought too. It's like he left the porn tabs open on his Magic Mirror browser.
because if you look at people's reaction, so he has this vial and he shakes it, and then smoke appears, and on this screen is this woman dancing topless, and he even goes like, "Oh." And then if you
Oh,
look at the reaction of the people in the background, they all look away or they
they're
like
just
grab their head.
they're all just like embarrassed for him.
Yeah.
Oh, so awkward.
Feel like the wizard's been watching wizard porn again.
On the Magic Mirror.
It was so good.
Uh,
But again, it's like probably one of the laziest things that they could do in the movie is they're seeing Red Sonja and Ernie Reyes Jr. through the camera of the film, right?
oh yeah, I hate when they do that. Where it's like if you get if you're listening to this and you can imagine, you know those parts in movies where like someone is surveilling someone else like through like a closed circuit TV, or in this case like a magic mirror or a crystal ball or something, and what the characters see looking at them through the looking device is also the same like camera framing that we the audience see. It just seems so lazy like to just use that same footage. They couldn't have shot it from a different angle to make it look like it was in the universe of the movie.
Almost every movie is guilty of this. Even modern movies
Yeah,
don't take the
they do it a
time
lot.
to do like one different angle. Like this is the CCTV angle. No,
Yeah, right?
it's just black and white Captain
It's this
America, right? Like,
yeah, it's the same close up that we got a second ago that was like
yeah,
really well like it's a weird, it's hard to describe almost. It's like a weird unintentional fourth wall break almost because it's like like the bad guys in the movie are watching the same movie that you
it's
are in
Spaceballs
a
moment.
way. Yeah, it's a Spaceballs moment.
Sir, we're
It's
here
really
in the movie.
distracting.
When's now? Now's then. But when does now
How did we
happen?
miss it?
It just
Missed
happened.
it. That's actually really good. Yeah, that's a really good description. Like that's exactly what it feels like. And maybe not necessarily that's like on the nose, but like your brain knows it.
Yeah,
Your brain noticed that and it kind of brings you out of the movie a little bit. A little
exactly.
pet peeve.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Red Sonja and Kino, they're on horseback and they come up to a giant chasm with lava, and they're like, "Hey, we're here." Like the Queen Gedrin's castle is literally right there.
Yep.
Which when you think of like a sweeping epic, it takes days to get to the precipice of the evil queen's castle, but it took them an
Right.
afternoon. Um,
Basically. I mean, and I love all the travel sequences that we get earlier because this great like mountain scenery. Like I wouldn't have said no to more of that. But
exactly.
no, they just teleport there where they need to be.
They see this giant unicorn skeleton thing. It's essentially a skeleton bridge.
It's
Uh,
so cool
it
too,
is, and it's that's a matte painting, and it looks
for sure.
gorgeous.
Yeah, really, really great map because it blends so seamlessly because they're like in this really picturesque kind of like field almost. It's like a mountain step almost, and it the this you know deep crevasse and the skeleton bridge over it blends so nicely into the scenery. It just looks really great.
Exactly. So they all cross over the crevasse.
The crevasse, yeah,
Uh,
I'll say it, crevasse.
and then it's nighttime and everyone's settling down. And Red Sonja notices that Ernie Reyes Jr. is doing martial arts practice behind a giant rock. Well, I guess it's not giant because he's a kid. It's a normal sized
A
rock.
moderately sized boulder.
Yeah. And they have a moment. This is Red Sonja and the prince's moment to kind of bond with each other. She's kind of like,
Right.
"Hey, kid, if you want to be a good king, you got to stop being such a bitch." And
Stop being a little dick.
yeah, and it's so funny how quickly he gets these life lessons and turns it around. And he starts bowing and thank yous and
Yeah, be nice.
being very
It,
nice to Red Sonja.
it's
Uh,
a nice little like she's almost like kind of like a mentor figure for him to
e-
like, hey, this, you should treat your people better. Like your manservant. He's a brave dude. You should treat him better.
he's a person too. Of
Yeah.
course, it's undercut when he's like, "One day I'm going to be king and I'm going to need a queen, and I think it's going to be you, baby."
Yeah.
Uh,
It's like yeah, undercut is a great way to describe it. Like you think he's gonna like be taught respect, and then he just, yeah, I'm gonna own you one day, lady.
is it truly an '80s movie if you don't treat your leading ladies like shit?
Like objects.
Yeah,
It's that's a good, yeah, it is very like the we're getting a little peek behind the kimono there, and it's very much an 80s movie in that regard. Just
exactly.
the casual sexism.
There's two things I expect from the '80s in canon movies. If there's a woman, I mean, not to make light of it, she's probably going to be sexually assaulted. But
Hmm.
any other '80s movie, the woman's probably going to be treated like a piece of meat and not a real
Yep.
character. And it's such a
Yep.
shame because, like Red Sonja, she's supposed to be like this feminist icon. She's a very strong woman. She don't
Oh
need
yeah.
no man. But
Like a warrior badass. It's
yeah,
totally undercut by those little slights by a kid.
yeah, he is sniping from 1,000 yards away. Uh,
80s movies.
we go back and Queen Gedrin is talking to the Nazi again. I guess we didn't really talk about Queen Gedrin's get up here. She has this I think it's like very beautiful face mask, like Phantom of
Oh,
the Opera esque face
we
mask.
we disagree on that face mask hard.
Oh,
I
really?
I think that's the dumbest. Like in a movie otherwise filled with like great costumes and makeup, that face mask, it just looks stupid. It looks like someone just like stretched a couple of thongs across her face because there's just like weird random straps across her eyes and nose and cheeks. It looks so dumb. Like they could have done a much cooler, like, yeah, like you said, like a Phantom of the Opera, like half face mask. The
Wow.
one that they did, yeah, I don't know. I just thought it looked dumb.
Do you remember
It looked like underwear on her face.
300?
Have I ever seen 300? Is that what
Yeah.
you asked? Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, it's been a while. I've seen it.
Xerxes had a
You're right.
mask like that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I remember what you're talking about now. Like, yeah, it had this similar like random straps, and I think his had like little dangly like sequins and things off of
Yeah.
it. And that honestly, that's a great description. And honestly, it looked stupid then too.
Oh, I love it. You got the claws out today. You got the Red Sonja blade out today.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah. I don't
cry
know.
after this podcast. Greg
You're gonna
hated
go.
the movie that I liked.
That's one of those moments where like you were about to show me the mask that you had made that looks just like that, and you walk away all dejected.
I'm hiding
Oh.
my Queen Gedrin cosplay.
Phil is wearing that strappy thong mask right now, and I just can't see it.
Oh man, that's interesting. I thought you would have liked it. I thought I mean, so she has like a scar on the side of her face, and it's kind of like the
Right.
Baroness, not the Baroness, but from Captain Planet. Remember the one villain? She has like half of her face is hidden by her
Oh
hair,
yeah.
and then when like
Yeah.
sweeps away, she has like Swamp Thing face.
Yeah, it's all
Um,
scarred and deformed and
so she's wearing this Phantom of the Opera mask in order to hide a scar that Red Sonja gave her in the past.
right in
Um,
the flashback.
so she's wearing this really janky ass costume. I hate it too. I never really liked it.
Smooth.
And she's telling the Nazi essentially like we need to start using the talisman to create a storm to start ushering Red Sonja down the path that we need her to go down. Cut to Red Sonja in a storm in a cave, and she's like, "Something's making us go down this path, this very
I don't know what it
specific
is.
path." Uh, Ernie Reyes Jr. goes deeper into this cave, and I think the cave, this whole set piece looks great.
Oh, it looks awesome.
They're in like this cave area. There's water. there's water just like they're in water, but there's also just water coming down from like the sides of the mountain and
This was
out.
a big, yeah, this was a big surprise. Like this is a really, I can imagine, like this is one of the scenes where I could tell that there's definitely a bigger budget there because
Yeah.
doing like what I assume is in a tank, right? Like I think that's
Yeah.
how they shoot these, like in a big studio tank, and they put these fake cave walls around it, and like you said, there's like water being piped out the sides. Like that's a really expensive looking shot, and it looks awesome. I'm just amazed that they. This is definitely the kind of thing that you would not find in Hercules.
No, you definitely would not. Ernie Reyes Jr. is fixated on this pearl that's in the mouth of a like a statue, right? Now,
Like a gargoyle.
every adventurer knows that you don't remove the pearl.
No, 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 no.
Uh,
It's like the ruby at the bottom of the in Aladdin that Abu
yep.
swipes and causes the lava thing to happen. Like that's you're right. It's very obviously one of those kinds of artifacts.
The manservant though removes it. As he does that, more water starts pouring out of different
Yep.
orifices in the cave walls. And this monster, this mechanical monster appears, and it looks dope as shit.
It really does. So okay, I was gonna ask you, is it I couldn't tell if it was just like an organic serpent that had armor on, or if it was actually
I don't know
it's
because
actually mechanical.
they say it's a machine, and
Oh, do they? I
Gedrin
missed that.
said like we have to get them to the machine. Um,
Oh, okay, I
and
missed that. So
it
it was like a mechanical thing.
which is even more impressive. But like when they hit it, you can hear like the sound of metal and stuff like that.
And that's why I thought it might have been because you in the look of it too, like it looks like it's got plating on. That's why I thought it
Yeah.
might have been just had armor on. But yeah, if they actually talked about it being kind of like a mechanical sentry or something, that
So
makes sense.
everyone is fighting it. Ernie Reyes Jr. gets on the back of it, and then out of nowhere, Arnold he just jumps into the fray. I think that's one of the one of the things that I love about this movie is it's like, is this getting dull? Or Arnold jump into the scene. That's what it
Yeah,
feels
spice it
like.
up a little bit because you're right. Like this is as cool as the set was and the monster. This serpent fight went on way too long, and I
It
was actually again I was getting a little bored. And then Arnold like pops into the scene. Is like okay, I'm back in.
yes, because it just circles a lot. It just goes around and around in circles.
Yeah.
But then Arnold's like, "Hey, we have to pop this things. We got to get the eyes out." And then
Get the eyes out.
Red Sonja and Arnold, they like, jimmy the eyes off of this monster thing. I don't know how else to say it. They just jimmy
Yeah,
him
you're right.
out.
They're kind of like it's kind of it's harsh too because
Yeah,
they like work like a dagger under the eye, and they can hear this like this. I guess it's a machine like screaming in pain. It's like, oh god,
exactly. As they pop both the eyes out, it starts like death thrashing in the water, and Arnold's like, "You can just go by it now. It can't see you."
it can't see you.
And then
Goodbye.
like the manservant is just casually carrying Ernie Reyes Jr. right by it. No one is afraid of this thing anymore.
This poor blinded. I guess is yeah. The sympathy is kind of lessened because it's it's a machine now, but still, it's like it's certainly in a lot of pain for a machine.
It is. It is. They're out up in the surface, and Red Sonja is tending to Conan's wounds, and Conan has some serious fucking bedroom eyes right now. He is looking at Red Sonja
Yes.
like he wants her. He loves
Yep.
her. She's a warrior woman. But Red Sonja has a decree. She will only be with a man if she gets beaten in combat.
It's
Which
the
I
way
can
that
kind
she
of get.
says that.
It's one of those things where it's kind of like I don't want to be with a man that is of less, right?
Yeah, she like that's her way of kind of proving like getting to like prove his worth. And it's like, yeah, okay, I only want to be with someone who's like my equal.
Yeah.
But the way that she says it though, like we talked before about like the whole like her being this really independent, has a lot of agency as a female like warrior, but it just gets undercut by these weird lines that again I just chalk up to being a tone deaf 80s movie. But the way that she says it, she's like the only men that may have me. Like
Yeah.
she still refers to herself as a prize,
As an object.
Yeah, it's really, really, yeah. I get the best way to put it is it just kind of undercuts the message.
I mean, probably if if podcasts were a thing in the 80s and people were hearing us talk about that now, they would be like, what are these two assholes talking about?
You're probably right. Yeah.
Because I mean, this is just how it was in the 80s, at least for 80s movies, you know?
That's just how they referred to even female heroines in this
Yeah.
case. They were still sort of that like prize to be won by the dudes.
And I'll say this, Bridget Nielsen in this moment or in this movie is how I feel about Gal Gadot. They are cast based off of the fact that they're pretty. They're put in these movies because they have presence in their character,
Right.
right? But they're not particularly good at acting. Gal
No,
Gadot, she looks great as Wonder Woman. I'm a big fan of the first Wonder Woman movie, but
yeah, for sure.
shit, she cannot act to save her life.
No, I'm glad you brought up Wonder Woman. That's a good thing to compare this movie against, because you get the same scenario where there's like a really like your female lead. She's like this almost like an Amazon warrior, literally in Wonder Woman, but in so many words in this one too. But you're right. It's the exact same kind of casting trap that they fell into here. Is like they went for like the warrior stature, but the character, like they just can't act to save their lives, and it kind of to the detriment of the movie and the message.
And I'll say, you know what? I think Wonder Woman and Red Sonja also suffer from the same thing of very strong females that when they get into contact with a man, they start referring to themselves as objects or fall into the tropes of wanting to be, like, oh, I love you, right? Like when
finding a husband is my only motivation.
Yep, she fell in love with Captain Kirk. Like, I get it. He's the captain of the Starship Enterprise, but shit,
it's Chris Pine. We get it.
You're an Amazonian warrior. Like,
you could do better.
And this is fucking World War One. Like, Red Sonja, you know that there's this object that's going to destroy the world. Stop flirting with Arnold.
Priorities, girl.
Do that after. You don't even need Arnold. But anyways.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's definitely this is definitely suffers from that same trap where you establish this strong warrior woman, and as soon as but whenever she's around men, like she becomes the damsel in distress, whether it makes sense or not.
And then I will say this is the worst part of the film, because it's like a 7-minute scene of Red Sonja and Schwarzenegger fighting each other. No one's in mortal danger. It's just so Arnold can have sex, but it ends with them just being extremely tired at the end. And
what was the point? Was that they were evenly matched, so like no one won, or did they not want each other to win? Like, what were we supposed to think there?
Because remember, Ernie Reyes Jr.'s like, why is she putting up such a strong fight? She doesn't want to win, because like even the kid can see that she wants Arnold, and then Arnold obviously wants her. I think it's she doesn't want to seem weak. He doesn't want to obviously lose, because then he loses Red Sonja. But so we end in a draw where they're both equally matched.
Yeah, just out of breath. And I guess maybe that's why they wanted it to go on so long, so that we establish like, oh, they're evenly matched. No one's gaining the upper hand here. It's just kind of they're going to go to a stalemate. But boy, as the audience, it takes way too long. And there's like no music.
There isn't, anything, which is so weird, right?
Yeah, it's silent and awkward, and it just goes on way too long.
You have like this, you have Marcone as your composer, and you just don't put any music behind this fight scene is longer than the fight scene between Red Sonja and Queen Gedrin.
At the your final fight scene, it just goes on for so long. Honestly, I'm almost like ashamed to admit this, but like this was going on so long, I stopped paying attention to the fight scene, and I was just like inspecting the background. I was like, wow, this is a really pretty forest that they shot this in. Look at those nice trees and the nice leaves on the ground. Like, wow, this is really great. I was totally ignoring what was going on between Arnold and Sonja.
Or were you so immersed in the movie that you were noticing the small details of it?
The beautiful foliage, I guess. Yeah, I'll throw the movie a bone and say that.
So they're done fighting, and then we cut to the next day. It doesn't really matter what day it is.
No.
Even though they put down the time frame of 13 days before the world gets destroyed, time is an illusion
Yeah,
in
the
this
ticking
movie.
clock element is so out the window at this
Yes.
point.
So the gang, they all get to the castle, and there's a door. It's an immovable door. They don't know how it opens, and Ernie Reyes Jr. is gonna stand guard because it's so important. But they're just telling the kid that it's important when it's really just probably the most unimportant door in the entire film. Uh, so Arnold and the rest are gonna climb up this mountain. The first thing I thought of was the fat manservant ain't
Hell
fucking
no.
making it up there.
Not a chance. Yeah, they're like, I mean, it's a huge cliff face that they're just scaling, like free climbing.
Yeah.
No way this guy's going to make it up there.
Then we cut to the inside of the castle, and again, it's one of those moments where I'm like, they cut something out of this film because Queen Gedron's like, they're here, they're already here, and then the Nazis kind of like, yeah, how could they have made it here already? And I'm like, you sent like one object in front of them to stop them. That's how. Like,
Yeah, they just made great time.
you didn't fucking try at all to stop these people. Which again, like makes me think like there's 40 minutes on the cutting room floor somewhere. You know?
I guess it was just they didn't have the budget or the time or the inclination to make it work. But you're right; it definitely felt like there was chunks missing, chunks of like the hero's journey.
Yeah.
To the evil bad guy's lair.
The Nazi is like, screw this, I'm out. Queen Gedron starts laughing like a maniacal idiot on her throne.
Oh my god, that laugh. Okay, this is probably one of the biggest offenders in terms of horrible flat performances. That like evil nervous laugh, it just that, that is a perfect recreation of this laugh. It just sounds, this actress does not give a shit. That's exactly, he's a ha 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 ha.
Do you think at this point she's realizing that
terrible.
they're ripping pages out of her script, and they're like, we don't have enough time. I don't know if we have enough money. We that fucking spider cost $1 million.
Oh God, what do we do?
And we can't even film the scene with Ernie Reyes Jr. with it right now.
Oh man,
Ernie's crying in the corner. He's like,
my fight scene, no.
Exactly.
That's the evil queen. The actress realized that, oh God, all the good shit in this last final battle is getting cut.
Yeah.
So
as the heroes, they get into the castle, they're essentially like, hey, we're gonna split up. Red Sonja, you go north. Conan, you go east. Fat Man, just fuck around. It doesn't matter.
You go that way, I'll go home.
Which, if this was like a Burt Reynolds movie, you know, the fat guy would be Dom DeLuise, right? That's all I could think of, is like this guy would be Dom DeLuise in a lesser film.
If this were actually a canon movie, it would be.
Yeah. And then his thing would be like cooking. He'd be like, oh, spicy. I don't know.
Oh, spicy. I'm gonna blast paprika in your eyes.
Yeah, exactly. Why does Dom DeLuise always cook? We're getting off subject. And we're really close to the end. The manservant takes like 2 steps and he falls in a hole. And then
that's right. Yeah, like the chute or something.
Yeah, he's in like a dining hall. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger just appears in the dining hall too. And they all start fighting. It's a really good fight scene. Like,
it is.
It looks good. It's fun to watch. A guy gets like boiled alive by stew.
Yeah. There's the food kill that we needed from the not Dom DeLuise character.
And these guys, the bad guys' henchman armor is awesome. Like, it looks really cool.
Attention to detail. There's cool acrobatics in this one too.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you almost need that in a big banquet hall fight scene where there's no chandelier that they're swinging from, but they use the dining room table as a seesaw launch. I was like, of course, it's classic.
So after that fight, we see the Nazi. He's got bags of gold, and he goes to the door that Ernie Reyes Jr. is behind. Just
trying to escape with a little bit of booty.
Yep, and Ernie Reyes Jr. is like, that's my gold. And he slices the bag open. And the Nazi guy's like, well, that was rude. And he just backhands the shit out of the kid.
This little kid.
It was so awesome. Ernie Reyes Jr. like 20 minutes earlier was being taught by Red Sonja how to handle a sword, how to like fight, and it's just all out the door. But don't worry, it's redeemed because Ernie Reyes Jr. closes this giant door, and the Nazi he like trips in the door jamb of it, and it slowly crushes him to death.
From like the legs up, and you hear
Yes.
him screaming. It's like this wasn't like the most technically impressive kill, but this is the kill that you felt the most.
Yes.
It was like those women in the beginning getting thrown into like the dark pit and closed in. It was like as a human being watching this movie, this is one of those kills like I felt this. I would not want to die this way.
Jackie,
Getting crushed.
my wife was like, "That was awesome."
Badass. Oh, it was a great kill.
So Ernie Reyes Jr. he's running around. He sees the Queen's hench girl, and she's like, "I'm scared. I'm frightened. Come help me." And his pride gets the best of him, and Queen Gedrin holds him hostage. She's got like a knife to his little neck. And then Red Sonja appears out of fucking nowhere and saves Ernie Reyes Jr.
Yep.
And then Queen Gedrin realizes who Red Sonja is. Red Sonja realizes who Queen Gedrin is. Queen Gedrin's the person who murdered her family. So then they get into their epic fight, which I do like this. I like the fight in the throne room as the world is shaking, things are falling apart. And then there's the moment where the wizard starts to like make her disappear and reappear throughout the throne room. I thought it was really effective. It was really cool.
See, like the concept was cool, but this is another one of those cases where like the teleportation, it's so lazy where they just do that easy trick where you just stop the camera, the actor moves, and then they start the camera again, and they just like bloop, they just blink back and forth. Like there's no. I guess I was expecting more from this where they would have put some kind of like light effect or like a particle, like or a flat, like a light flash,
Like a
something.
poof.
Yeah, like a poof, some kind of visual effect when she does the teleportation, but she just blinks around the room. It's a cool idea, like having a wizard like help her in the fight, but it was just executed so lazily compared to everything else.
It's like if Nightcrawler bamfed, but there wasn't like the blue smoke.
Yeah, he just bleep,
You just hear bamf, and it's like, what the fuck was that?
Because you think like, yeah, it looks like the movie messed up.
Yeah.
No, that's just the teleportation.
there's a visible like jump in they didn't like anchor the camera down.
Oh yeah, like the guy pressing this starting in some of the camera, he like bumped the camera too much, so like it doesn't look seamless at all. It definitely happens once or twice.
Yeah. As the fight goes on, Queen Gedrin kind of side eyes the wizard, kind of like, yeah, we're doing this. And Red Sonja immediately notices and just murders
Yes.
the wizard. And again, we get the head pop off motion.
Beheading number 2. I was not, you mentioned it earlier, like we get more than one beheading. I was not expecting to see the second one. It was awesome.
It was awesome. Queen Gedrin beelines it out of there. And they end up in the room of all the candles.
Candle room, woo.
As the two enter, this gate slams shut behind them. And Arnold, Dom DeLuise, and Ernie Reyes Jr. are all watching the fight unfold before them.
Yeah, helpless to do anything about it because that gate went down and they can't get it open.
Now, I obviously have seen this movie before. I didn't really remember the end. I was actually confusing the endings with a Conan movie. Go figure.
Oh,
I was, because I was like, where's the mirror monster at? Or is that ever going to happen? That doesn't happen in this movie because it isn't this movie.
So what a disappointment.
As Red Sonja and Queen Gedrin are fighting, I thought Red Sonja was going to start like slicing the candles or like putting them out, you know?
Oh, that would have been cool. Like to sort of drain the power from the talisman while they're in there.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, that would have been cool. Having her like trying to do kind of weird like sword magic to blow the candles out from a distance.
Exactly.
That would have been neat.
So they're fighting. Arnold and Dom DeLuise lift the gate open, and Ernie Reyes Jr. goes in there to help Red Sonja, but he doesn't help like at all. He immediately gets trapped underneath a falling pillar.
And it starts whining for help.
Yeah.
Help! It's like you're just actively hurting the situation, little prince.
But it almost seems like that, like, help empowers Red Sonja because she starts taking like barbarian swings at Queen Gedrin. And it turns less into a fight and more of just like, I'm just gonna beat the shit out of your sword until you get tired.
Yeah. You know what that reminded me of is that part in Return of the Jedi where Luke, like Darth Vader, he's dying at this point, and Luke is just like wailing on his lightsaber because he's so pissed off.
Yeah.
That's what this reminded me of. Like Sony, she's like, you're right. I think it's seeing the little prince kind of hurt and in trouble that, like, oh, I've got people to protect. Like this is my family now, and she's just wailing on the sword.
And since the world is shaking and things are falling apart, the floor has opened and there you can see the lava. And then Queen Gedrin eventually gets pushed off the edge into the lava. Uh and
Yeah.
and then immediately Red Sonja picks up the MacGuffin and throws it into the lava. Now, the MacGuffin is powered by light. Lava is pretty bright.
Yeah.
Would it destroy? I'm guessing the MacGuffin is so weak that it can get destroyed by lava before it becomes supercharged by the light that it gives off.
That's all that I could think of, because we get that whole scene in the beginning, right? Where there's like they're intending to destroy it, but it's not like an easy thing. Like they can't just throw it, chuck it in some fire. Like they have this elaborate ceremony where they enclose it in darkness and then destroy it, and you need all these people around to do whatever they need to do. Like it's not an easy thing to destroy, and yet she just launches it into fire and it explodes. I guess. Yeah, it seems weird that
It's
it was so
80s
easy
logic.
to destroy. 80s logic. Yeah, just hand wave.
Back in the 80s, lava was like the ultimate destroyer. You know, it's like one of those things.
Just the erases everything.
They're
Talking
like,
to a volcano, gone.
like what would the 70s be? Like every era has like their thing where it's like, oh, if it gets into that, like it gets destroyed. 80s is lava, and 90s is probably like nuclear, reactors or something like that. 2000s is
It would be cyberspace.
cyberspace.
You get hacked to death.
Oh,
What would the
man.
70s one be?
70s,
You get like disco music to death.
it would be like it would be drugs. It would be like you get you like inject the bad guy with drugs, like Joe, right? Like I'm gonna spread some pills around.
I'm gonna get this talisman high on PCP,
Yeah.
and it's gonna fucking explode.
60s is the Vietnam War.
Yeah, in the 60s, the talisman would be sent off to fight in some jungle nation, and it would get shot to death.
50s is racism or casual wife beating. 40s is the Depression, World War II.
I'm more laughing now at the mental image of a glowing orb in place of like a human character dying in all these weird different ways.
It's like how did your villain die in the 60s movie? He got drafted at the end of the movie.
he got sent to Vietnam. Oh,
horrible.
Yeah, that's some serious gallows humor there, but that's so funny. You're right. There is like kind of like a decade by decade, like what's gonna be the sort of the social cue for how how the bad guy gets their comeuppance.
Temple of Doom. Don't they use a lava? They use a volcano in it.
Yeah, chucking in a volcano.
Shit. Well, anyways,
something there, Phil.
as the castle's getting destroyed, Arnold Schwarzenegger sees like this pillar being destroyed, and this is probably one of the most realistic things. He gets underneath the jam and he holds up like 5 boulders.
Yeah, like the whole ceiling
with just his
stone.
Arnold strength, and I was like, it seems like he could do that.
He's a big, strong dude.
They eventually get to the door that has the crushed Nazi underneath it, and they're like, we don't know how to open this, but Ernie Reyes Jr. does. And he goes underneath some rubble to get to the door handle. As he goes under, the rubble drops. Ernie Reyes Jr. opens the door and he's like, just run, just go, save yourself. He's finally learned the lesson of self-sacrifice.
Self-sacrifice.
But Arnold just lifts the junk up, and they
Oh, okay.
save Ernie Reyes Jr. Yeah, it's pretty much like, yeah, I'm fine. And the castle gets destroyed, and everyone's kind of out in a field now,
Yeah.
saying goodbye. And Ernie Reyes Jr. is like, "Hey, Red Sonja, when I need a queen, you baby."
A
And then Arnold Schwarzenegger's like, "Hey, she's gonna be my queen," and she's like, "Not if you don't fight me first." And they start fighting, but then they stop and they kiss, and
and they
that's
hold on that kiss.
Red Sonja.
Ugh.
3.5 out of 5.
Wow, 3.5. Okay, right into the star ratings here.
I really want to hear yours. I want to hear you say 1.
It's no. It was not even close to a 1 star for me. I think there are so many great, like the production design was just so good in a lot of this that it elevated it to a 2 for me.
Oh, wow, it too.
Yes. The performances and the dialogue, it was just like all of the written elements in this movie and the acting was just so wooden and kind of dull that there were just too many cases where I was getting bored, and it was only saved because something cool came on the screen, like a matte painting or a cool set or something.
You can't have your movie 2 leads be it sounds horrible. I'm not saying that they can't be not non-English speaking actors, but you can't have 2 actors that are in the beginning of their career leading it trying to speak English. Bridget
Yeah.
Nielsen, it's her first movie. She's not a trained actress, and she's trying to speak English throughout it. Arnold Schwarzenegger has a couple films under his belt,
But
but
not really in a kind of significant speaking role.
exactly, the Terminator, he has like what, 10 words? I think
At
in
most, yeah.
Conan, he's again, it's like not that many. So you're trying to get these actors to do this production, and Bridget Nielsen's so focused on, doing the choreography,
Physical presence.
speaking English, physical presence, that she's not in the
Yeah.
moment.
I think you're onto something there. I think these were like they look the part, no
Yes.
question about it. But I think they were just so at this point in their careers, because we know that Arnold can carry a movie
Oh, yeah.
later in his career, but I don't think he was maybe necessarily there yet. And I think I think this was just horribly miscast, honestly. Aside from the little kid, little prince, spot on casting.
Yes, Ernie
Other than
Reyes,
that, it seems weird.
you can't have the kid actor be the best actor in the movie. Usually it's the other way
It really
around.
was.
Kid actors bogged down the movie. Ernie Reyes Jr. elevated the movie.
Oh yeah, with his like hoity-toity, I'm the best thing since sliced bread, kind of little arrogant prince. Like that is a great character. He's constantly giving it his all, and it's the dialogue is kind of hammy sometimes, but he's trying so hard,
Yeah.
and we just don't get that level of effort from the main characters everywhere else.
What the hell happened to him? He had such good chemistry. He did this, obviously Ninja Turtles 1 and 2, Surf Ninjas,
I
and
was gonna
then
say Surf Ninjas. Oh, Surf Ninjas.
it just went off the rails for him. He
Yeah.
started I think it's just because the lack of roles for Asian Americans in you know in Hollywood.
Yeah, maybe like I guess he did kind of get typecast a little bit, especially as he was, coming out of his child actor years. He got typecast into just ninja movies. Like that's all that Asian Americans were getting in the
Yeah.
90s and 80s. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he just got disillusioned with that and stopped acting entirely.
His
But
last credited role is the TV show Superstore, where he played
oh, that's a good
customer.
show. Oh, it's just like a bit part.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
And
Oh man, I've got such great memories of Surf Ninjas now. Can't believe, we brought that up now. That's all I'm thinking about now.
yeah. I don't know. I think he was really good in that. My kid gave it a solid 10 out of 10.
You bring up a good point there. So this was another. I had the same, or I think I've had the same question about Hercules, where like, who was this movie made for? Because there's a lot in here that seems really geared towards kids, like a lot that I think kids would enjoy, which explains your nostalgia for it, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But there's also like, it's also really dull at points, and there's a lot of violence in it too.
Yeah.
So like, it didn't seem like they were really going for like a family friendly kids adventure movie.
I saw the waves in my kid. Action. Oh, he's watching it.
Yeah.
They're talking. I don't care. Action. Like you could see the ebbs and flows throughout the entire film. But then at the
Interest
end,
kinda,
he's
yeah.
like, I loved it. And then he was acting like he was Arnold for the rest of the night. Screaming to get to the
Swinging.
chopper. Get to
Yeah.
the chopper.
Get to the chopper. Get to the fantasy chopper.
Dad.
Yeah.
But and I don't think my kid's aware of the mystique of Schwarzenegger at this time. I tried to usually before we have like a
Oh.
family movie night, I try to do the Joe Bob Briggs thing where I talk a little bit about the movie before we watch it and try to give some like
Aw, that's cute.
try to give some context of the moment of the film or some personal history of it with me. And I told the story again of how, this was like one of the lesser seen Arnold Schwarzenegger movies that would play it before the Arnold Thon on his
Mhm.
birthday. And it was just something that always captivated me as a kid.
Right.
And, I could definitely see like fantasy movies right now are not in vogue, but
No,
shit, when the film started playing, my kid was into it. And you could see in his mind, he was in the movie when he
Yeah.
was loving it. Fuck, he was loving it.
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot in here, especially with all the great visuals. There's a lot in here to spark that kind of imagination.
Yep. So are you ready? Are you ready for a little bit of trivia here?
I am always ready for trivia.
All right. So Rotten Tomatoes right now, it has a 15% on the
Oof.
tomato meter. Dull, poorly directed, and badly miscast, Red Sonja is an uninspired conclusion to Schwarzenegger's Barbarian trilogy, which was by Leonard Maltin. That was his review of it.
Okay.
Arnold Schwarzenegger said this of the movie:
Oh boy.
"It's the worst film I have ever made." Now I tell my kids that if they ever get out of line, they'll be forced to watch Red Sonja 10 times in a row. It must be working because I've never had much trouble with them.
Oh, the idea of this being used as punishment is just by the guy who is a lead in it. That's hilarious.
I have heard of one other actor shitting this hardcore on a movie. Interestingly enough, it was Sylvester Stallone, who goes, Stop or My Mom Will Shoot is the worst movie I've ever made. When my kids get in trouble, I sit them down and make them watch the movie.
Oh, that's great.
So they are self-aware enough to where they realize, this movie was not
It's a stinker.
It was a miss. It was a critical miss. It didn't do well at the box office. The movie cost $17.9 million to make. It only got $6.9 million back.
Ugh.
So
yeah, that's a pretty, clear cut flop.
it is. It's pretty interesting to see again my nostalgia for the movie obscure how bad it probably is, but I don't care because when I logged this in Letterboxd last night at a 3.5, I saw the swamp of half stars that this movie was getting.
I bet, yeah.
And I was like, I can't be wrong. Am I wrong?
No, it's the children who are wrong.
Exactly. It's everyone else who's wrong because this movie was awesome.
I think
It's just I had a fun time. I think I get blinded by the love of a few things. I always get blinded by my love of movies. I get blinded by my love for Schwarzenegger and nostalgia.
Yeah. I think that's a good, I'm glad there was a good kind of contrast here between you who have some like good nostalgic memories of this from seeing it as a kid. And I'm seeing it for the first time now. I think you're right. There's definitely an element of, especially these kinds of movies, like like fantasy adventure kinds of movies where there's when you see them as a kid, that's all you remember are like the cool fights and the neat visuals and the fantasy elements and the imagination. That's all you remember. It's really easy as a kid to look past like the technical and the written shortcomings because you don't really, like you said, when your son was watching it, he was not really interested in what they were saying all that much or the
Yep.
plot. He just wanted to see Arnold and the heroes like kill the bad guys with swords. That's the cool stuff. But as adults, we care more about the written part, or at
Exactly.
least pay attention to it more. And it's those cracks start to look real big as you get older.
And it's always Red Sonja, obviously comic book character has been around for decades. The sequel has been in development since forever. Robert Rodriguez started to develop one in 2008 that was going to star Rose McGowan as Red Sonja. There was posters for this movie.
Really?
And then by 2010, Robert Rodriguez, he just couldn't get it cracked and it went away. And then Amber Heard at one point was going to be Red Sonja, and she was going to do the movie with the guy who directed Drive Angry. But again, like they couldn't figure it out in
Just in
time,
development hell.
and the
I wonder
rights went away.
because we talked a little bit, you mentioned before how fantasy movies aren't really in vogue now. I feel like that was sort of, Lord of the Rings really popularized that early 2000s, and then it sort of tapered off from that point. We got like movies
Super
like
quick.
Troy and the kind of resurgence of the fantasy and also the kind of the sword and sandal,
Yeah.
genre. Maybe it was like too little too late when they tried to make it. They were trying to capitalize on that. And then by the time they even got anything off the ground, it was sort of no one wants to spend that much money on it anymore.
You're given the filet mignon that is Lord of the Rings, and then you start getting crap. Like, I won't say Troy is crap, but it's not amazing. You start getting movies like Troy, The Golden Compass, the Percy Jackson films, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. They're imitators in the realm of fantasy around the time of Lord of the Rings, and
everyone was just, what kind of fantasy stuff do we have on our shelf that
Yeah.
we can just shove into production and capitalize on the fad?
exactly, they just couldn't get there. Couldn't get there in time.
I mean, it's a kind of a clever idea. I mean, I feel like there's nothing especially unique about the premise necessarily or the character, but I think you could, especially nowadays where there's the idea of like a really great female action star is kind of becoming more popular now, especially with like the Wonder Woman movies and that Terminator movie that came out not that long ago. I think this kind of story could do pretty well in that environment, but yeah, sounds like it's been in development hell for so long that who knows if it'll ever see the light of day.
We will see this movie when the King Conan film gets released with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which will be never.
Ugh. Yeah, probably not.
But you know
He's
what?
so old.
It's time to put the sandals away and the swords and the fantasy.
I
Let's
hate sand.
let's
It's everywhere.
Put-
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
put Ernie Reyes Jr. back in the corner where he belongs, even though I love him to death.
Boy.
I mean, there's only one place to go after all of this. That's Malibu High. That's right.
Hey.
The Graduates of Malibu High, also known as Young Warriors. This is a low budget, go figure, American crime drama film. And it's a canon film. Now, here's something interesting, Greg. It's only been released on VHS and Laserdisc in the United Kingdom.
Uh-oh.
Yep. So get ready to watch a VHS quality of this.
Uh-oh.
A young woman, and look, I said this earlier, and I don't want to make fun of what I'm about to say, but it's not a canon movie without it. A young woman is raped and murdered by bikers,
Yeah.
and
I
her
know what you
brother
mean.
is out for vengeance.
The staple plot device, the staple reason for the actor, the main person, to go and do whatever they're going to do is someone got raped and I got to get revenge.
Exactly. Starring Ernest Borgnine, Richard Roundtree, and Lena Quigley.
Linnea Quigley, awesome.
The Graduates of Malibu High. Oh wait, The Graduates of Malibu High. This was intended to be a sequel to another movie, Malibu High. What? We're getting in. I'm sorry, we're getting into trivia that I
What?
haven't researched yet and figured out. uh,
Wait a second. Are we going to get into another scenario like Hercules where we accidentally watch a sequel?
I think this is the sequel, but like it's not a canon film.
Oh,
Oh,
so it's like a Death Wish scenario where there was a first movie that was not canon and canon wanted to capitalize on it and make a sequel.
yeah, and you know what? The only way this movie's got released was through Vinegar Syndrome.
Of, of course.
Let's just take a look really quick to see if you could, if this could even be purchasable. Malibu High, there's still over a
It's kind of
thousand in
risky, yeah.
stock. So who knows? Maybe one day I'll see the original. But
Okay.
yes, the next movie we're gonna watch is Young Warriors, The Graduates of Malibu High.
Okay, so that's like the subtitle, Young Warriors, The Graduates of Malibu High.
No, it's called The Graduates of Malibu High or Young Warriors. I like what you just came
Oh.
up with. We're gonna watch Young Warriors, The Graduates of Malibu High.
Dun, 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 dun.
Greg, what was the quotable quote of the week?
The quotable quote of the week, and I have been quoting this, probably shouldn't be, but I've been quoting it regardless. So earlier on, where we see kind of Red Sonja after she's done all of her sword training and she's just beaten the master, and it's like, okay, your training is complete. And as he's walking her over to go pick her sword to go on this quest, he he gives this weird line, and it ties into what we were saying earlier about how they try to set Red Sonja up as this, this strong female warrior who is going to go on this adventure and doesn't, she's independent and can, kind of get the bad guy herself. And she's sort of, because of her past, been disillusioned by a lot of men in her life who have, basically either been killed or in this case, they raped her and killed her family. Like she's got a complicated history. And yet that's all kind of undercut by this line that we get from the sword master where he says, Sonja, you must learn to like men a little better. They're not all evil. and then he follows it up with, he says, in life, all is not swordplay. Hatred of men in a lovely young woman, it could be your downfall.
Sonja, you must learn to like men a little better. They are not all evil.
We must judge by our own experience, Grandmaster.
I know. But in life, all is not swordplay. Hatred of men in a lovely young woman, it could be your downfall.
I don't hate all men, Grandmaster.
That would have been music to my ears 30 years ago. Come. A great swordsman must have a great sword.
Why would you put a line like that in a movie where like you're trying to establish that she is clearly she's got a complicated history, but you need to like have her like get past that in sort of a natural way where she, comes to realize that, shutting the world out is not the answer to like leading a good life.
Yeah.
Like you have to come by that organically. Don't like shove that weird, awkward line into a like mentor figure. I don't know. It just seems so awkward. And it just like fits so well with that, with what happens elsewhere in the movie, where it just kind of clashes with the central theme of her being like an independent warrior who can do this stuff. It just makes no sense. It was so cringy. It's like you could definitely see, you could hear that that sword master saying, you'd be prettier if you smiled more.
Yeah.
Just like cringy lines.
Can't say stuff like that, dude.
No. So while not a funny necessarily quote, it's just it's so on the nose and indicative of how they treat this poor character throughout the entire movie.
Poor Red Sonja.
Poor Red Sonja.
Well, if you like what you're hearing,
On that dour note,
Please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Give us some constructive criticism. How can we make this podcast more enjoyable to you? You can follow us at Twitter at That's Canon. You can watch some of our videos on YouTube at That's Canon. And you can also email us at thatscanon@gmail.com. That's CANNON @gmail.com. And remember, since we said it,
that's canon.